is Sunday, June 20th, 2021, and here's this week's balcony garden update. We'll start over here with this here's cherry tomato plant. As you can see, you got the first red tomato on it, and lots of green ones. And here's another one that's starting to change color. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll have a bunch of red tomatoes. And here's the orange tomato plant that was grown from seed. It's still hard to believe that this grew from one cherry tomato. As you can see, it's a pretty much healthy plant. And here we have a tomato on it. That's kind of exciting. And if we go even higher up, you can see some budding here, which means that it should produce some more tomatoes. So we can chalk this one up so far as a success. Now we're going to venture back to my sister's place and see all the plants that I planted in the ground there. I'll tell you ahead of time, it's kind of exciting to see that all three of the cherry tomato plants that were grown from seed are all budding. So they all seem to be a success. And I'm also going to tell you that the red pepper plants, they've also started to grow a little bit, so they look like they could be a success as well, but time will tell on those. And the hot pepper plant that I planted there, because it was just growing leaves here and didn't look like it was doing anything else, has also started budding. So it looks like we're reporting lots of success this week. Okay, so here's a tomato plant. As you remember, there wasn't much of a plant here when we started out, and it has progressed quite nicely. I'm going to reinforce it. If you have a look here, this is about to open up as a flower, which means that by next week there should either be flowers or tomatoes, or at least one tomato, on this plant. Okay, so what I've done is I've put a cage around the first plant here, so that should help support it better. Now this one was the tallest plant at the beginning of the season, but then the wind took a toll on it. If you have a look here, you can see it's budding. These should be flowers shortly, which means we should get tomatoes on this one as well. Now here's the third tomato plant. This one's got all kinds of nice healthy green leaves on it. I'm going to put a cage around it too, because I anticipated growing bigger. So here's the budding on the third cherry tomato plant, which means that all three of them have buds on them, which means that all three of them should produce cherry tomatoes. We started with 8 cherry tomato plants from seed, and 3 of them are growing tomatoes here, and 1 of them is growing tomatoes on the balcony at my place. So 4 out of 8, a 50% success rate, which in this case I believe to be pretty good, considering that was all from 1 cherry tomato. And here's a pepper plant. That was red pepper, and that one's starting to grow pretty good too in the ground. Remember, I started these ones on the balcony and they just didn't seem to want to grow, but once I've put them in the ground, they seem to be progressing. And I think it's because they get lots of sun here. Interestingly enough, the pepper plants over here are growing, but not quite as fast. And that's because there's less sunlight on this side of the garden. Now this is a watermelon plant, and it just keeps growing leaves for now, and we'll keep an eye on it and see if we get any watermelons. Now this was the pepper plant that was struggling to grow on the balcony, so I decided to plant it in the ground. Now if you take a close look here, you'll see a couple of buds. See that there? Which means that we should get some peppers on this one. That's kind of exciting. I'll give you a quick look at what else is here. Here we have a zucchini plant. Now over here we have, this is curly parsley, and that's growing, and right beside it here is oregano. Those have grown pretty fast this year. And a quick look at this year's store-bought tomato plants. You can see they're good. They got some flowers on them, so I should get some tomatoes soon out of these. Here's an onion that's growing quite nicely. Now back here on the balcony, you can see we've got one pepper here that turned red. Well, don't mind the little water droplets. I watered the plants recently. The green one behind, you can see a little budding here in the picture too. You can see flowers on it, and this plant is indeed a success. And some more budding here at the top. Now here's another hot pepper plant. Now I want you to see the bottom here. Can you see that the roots are showing? Now, even though I planted this pretty deep, this plant seems to be either not that deep, or the roots have started showing because a lot of the topsoil has disappeared. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some more soil to it, so that's covered up again. Now if we look at this plant here, we have a pepper growing on it. So indeed, this one is also a success. If you remember last year, I tried to grow the Hungarian peppers and they didn't really do anything. But this year, we have a pepper here. We have flowering on this plant. So, looks like we are going to get, well, at least one pepper there now. And some more budding, so this one looks like it will also be a success. We are getting some strawberries from the strawberry plant. However, not getting the production that last year's strawberry plant put out. I'm not sure if it's just early in the season or it's just not producing as many, but we'll give it time and hopefully we'll get more strawberries from it. You can see last year's strawberry plant. More and more green leaves on it. Had that one bud. Find it. One bud, but it didn't grow a strawberry. You can see it started, but so I'm not sure that this is going to produce anything, but we'll keep an eye on it anyway. Onions are one of those things that they just keep growing and you just keep eating them. Take a look over here. These ones, the greens were pulled off and you can see what's grown back. This one's getting pretty tall. So if you pull the greens off, they will grow back. So that's another option if you just want the greens, or if you don't have enough onion plants, you can pull the greens off and more will grow back as opposed to getting more plants. And lastly, we have over here the garlic plants. We've got lots of greens on them. And we'll just let them do their thing. Oh yeah, and over here in the corner, the lemon plant. Seems to be growing a little bit at a time, but nothing crazy. I'll keep an eye on that as well. So 3 weeks into June this year, I've got some really good progress on the plants on the balcony and the ones that were planted in the ground. I haven't even reached July yet. So hopefully the summer will continue to be a success for growing. Again, thanks for comments, questions, feedback, and thanks for subscribing. See you next week.